Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. One of the most spectacular animals living in all of Africa is the Gelada baboon. It is also called the Bleeding Heart baboon because of its brilliant red chest, which is often revealed through its large and bushy mane. The adult male Bleeding Heart baboon collects 5 or 6 females into what is called a harem. Each harem of about 15 animals, including offspring, lives as a single tightly knit group. When 4 harems that are probably closely related join together, it is called a clan. A number of clans, usually 4 or more, then join as a group that is called a herd, which can number as high as 300 animals. These large herds of Bleeding Heart baboons are found only in the eastern African country of Ethiopia in the beautiful Simien Mountains National Park. The rugged and spectacular Simien Mountains are sometimes called the roof of Africa because of their great height. Here on the cliff walls close to the top of these rugged mountains and the nearby highland meadows, the Bleeding Heart baboon makes its home. It shares this home with the rare and endangered Walia ibex. The ibex is safe here on these mountain cliffs, high above where graceful eagles soar. The day's activities of the animals living in the world of the Bleeding Heart baboon are documented for us by Wild Kingdom's field reporter for Africa, zoologist Jonathan Scott of Kenya.
Sheer cliffs are a characteristic of the Simien Mountains. They are an essential part of Gelada baboon habitat, providing a refuge from predators as well as a safe sleeping place. Soon after sunrise, the geladas begin to stir from their sleeping places on the grassy ledges. The night has been cold, with temperatures dropping below freezing. Soon, the members of each harem, along with the adult dominant male, will move up the mountainside. At times, he will be challenged by one of the bachelor males, who hopes to take over the older male's harem. Gelada young warm up in the chilly morning by playing, and already their extraordinary ability to move about on the rugged slopes is well developed. The Simien terrain is so precipitous that the only animals living here are either extremely agile or fly. The agility of the Gelada is important, because its life is centered on the steep escarpment faces of the Simien Mountains, where they are protected from predators. As the Gelada picks his way along the rocky ledges, he will pass the agile Walia ibex, who prefers the steep cliff faces during the day. Each morning, they move to those ledges covered with grass to feed and sun themselves. The difficult terrain helps keep this sure-footed member of the goat family safe from enemies. Already, a tawny eagle is riding the updrafts as the gorges warm, his keen eyes looking for rodents in the rocks below. It doesn't take each harem long to reach the top of the cliffs, where the geladas begin to gather at the crest of the gorge. Here they wait and look for other harems to arrive from below, sometimes though through still sleepy eyes. While waiting for the clan to form, the young become active and the adult males respond to tense situations with a facial threat gesture called a lip roll. The lip roll is used even by young geladas as a threat when play fighting. Play fighting helps in the development of communicative skills and forms the foundation of adult social relationships, which are essential to the stability of the harem. The young of the harem receive close attention and are well cared for by their mothers. When the harem is on the move, the infants will ride on their mother's back, while the harem males are ever alert, watchful for signs of danger. Sometimes the adult males must fight to protect their females that may have strayed into another harem. With the issue settled, the gelada male collects his harem and moves on. Some of the harems will wait until the juveniles have finished their game of King of the Bush. Finally, with playtime over, the last of the adult male geladas and his harem will now begin to move off, led by one of the females with her twin infants. All of the harems are now on the move, forming clans that will eventually merge to become the loosely organized gelada herd that will proceed to the morning feeding place on the nearby highland meadow.
The gelada baboon is unique in that it is found in only one place in the world, in Africa, in the Simeon Mountains of Ethiopia. The gelada harems have joined their clans, which now form a large herd on a nearby slope where the new grass is beginning to appear.
Geladas spend most of their day in the mountaintop meadows, feeding on grass, roots and berries. They're the most strictly vegetarian of all the baboons. The gelada harems, now forming clans, spread out across the broad highland meadow where there is enough food to support this large herd. Here, the baboons feed on the grasses that account for 90% of their diet, probably because grass is the most available and the most abundant food source here in the highlands. But grass is not very nutritious, and the geladas will spend about 60% of their daytime hours feeding in order to obtain sufficient nutrients to survive. The grass is sparse, and the ground still hard from the dry season, requiring that the geladas stay constantly on the move, carefully selecting the choice new blades of grass with their strong and dexterous fingers. The grunt of the baboon as he eats is one of the many contact calls used to keep the members of the harem together. Each member of the harem can distinguish the voices of their group from other groups. Even young infants recognize the contact calls. Contact calling is used by a mother to keep in touch with her infant, even when the youngster is nearby. Adult bleeding heart males are not adverse to babysitting in this unique primate social structure, one of the most complex in the world of nature. To maintain these complex relationships, the gelada baboon possesses a highly developed system of communication which makes use of 27 distinct noises. Even while eating berries in a tree, the vocalizations continue and serve as one of the bonds that holds the harem together, no matter where it has scattered during the feeding period. The berries are a seasonal delicacy and are only a small but welcome part of the gelada's diet. Only when the trees are full of berries will geladas leave the ground, where they prefer to eat and live. This baboon is uneasy because a young male has attempted to take over one of the nearby harems and is being chased by the harem-owning male. The incident ends, hardly disturbing the feeding geladas who continue to search for the succulent grass roots near the wattled ibis, probing with its curved beak for insects. It is found only in Ethiopia, usually at altitudes over 5,000 feet. After feeding here in the open meadows, it will return with the gelada baboons to the cliff ledges, where it will roost for the night. The geladas will continue feeding until late afternoon, before eventually heading for their sleeping places on the steep cliffs. They rest occasionally, paying very little attention either to me or to the raucous noises of the vultures and eagles feeding in this area. The meadow habitats which provide food for the gelada also provide food for the many birds of prey found here. The tawny eagles squabble nearby as the vultures continue to arrive to claim part of the carcass left behind by one of the predators here. The tawny eagle must wait to eat until the vultures cease fighting. The competition is intense and the carcass will be devoured quickly. The huge lappet-faced vulture, because of his size, will attempt to dominate the feeding area, even though outnumbered by his smaller challengers. The scavengers on the ground will soon be joined by a lammergeier, a beautiful vulture with a 9-foot wingspan, who has a grace and magnificence all his own. The lammergeier will wait for the bones of the carcass, which he prefers. However, the thick-billed raven has a preference for the flesh and will eat it undisturbed elsewhere. The lamagar has the bones he needs, but not for long. Not interested in food just now are two immature lamagars who are engaged in mock combat. The young giants in the sky are of little interest to the geladas, who have rested and will soon move to their afternoon feeding place. Already, some of the geladas are on the move, prompting a mass exodus from the morning feeding place. The afternoon feeding place is on a higher part of the broad highland meadow, where the grass is greener and in sufficient quantity to support the entire herd, which will stay together for the rest of the day.
The herd of gelada baboons has moved slowly throughout the day, making observations of social behavior easy for Jonathan Scott.
The social organization of the gelada is quite different from that of other more familiar baboon species, but much of the behavior within the harems, such as grooming, is similar to that of other baboons. Surprisingly, though, it is the female and not the dominant male who controls the direction of the harem's movements. Like all adult gelada females, this one has a favorite grooming partner and leaves the late afternoon babysitting to one of the harem's adult males. The feeding over, one of the males takes a last drink from water that has collected in the depression of a rocky basin and moves off to take his place in the harem as the members gather for the trip back to the gorge, where they will return to their sleeping places on the grassy ledges. The pace quickens and the numbers grow as the herd will break up into clans, which begin their return trip across the highland meadows. Sometimes, the eagerness to return to the cliff ledges results in a near disaster. Adults with young are more careful. The mountain air grows colder as the geladas select their sleeping places for the night on the grassy ledges of the cliffs. Some geladas seem reluctant to see the day end and sit on the crest of the gorge for a last bit of warmth from the setting sun. As the day ends, these ibex have differences to settle before returning to the safe retreat of the rocky ledges for the night. the tawny eagle will hunt for a while longer before selecting a place for the night on the mountainside. The Bleeding Heart baboon and his harem have now found their favorite sleeping places, but some will pause and take the time to groom before the sun finally sets for the day. The ruggedly beautiful Simien Mountains provide the ideal habitat, with high cliffs for shelter and broad meadows to feed all the animals living here in the spectacular world of the Bleeding Heart baboon.
The ruggedly beautiful Simien Mountains National Park is another fine example of a unique habitat area that is being protected to preserve some of the most unusual animals found anywhere in the world. Here in this extraordinary mountain habitat, the agile Bleeding Heart baboon and the sure-footed Walia ibex, once on the verge of extinction, now stand a good chance for survival. Also sure to survive with added protection will be the many species of birds in the park, some of which are found only in Ethiopia. The protection of these animals by the Ethiopian government has contributed to the survival of wildlife that is truly unique and adds enormously to the beauty and excitement of the wild kingdom.